Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkas here. Today we're going to be building a basic token authentication system using Django VueJS and Axios. This video is going to be much the same as the last one, except it's going to be speedier, quicker, there won't be the explanations. So if you're building an authentication system for an MVP or something, this is the video for you. I wanted to preface it though by saying if you have any questions about anything, leave them below and somebody will answer them, maybe even me. So let's get started. I've got a folder right now called tutorials. Inside here I already have a tutorial end from the last one, but what we're going to do is we're going to create another one. So we're going to say Python 3 venv, and we're just going to call it quick env, quick, for this being the quicker video. This has now been activated. We can activate, well, hasn't been activated. We activate it now. Okay, we're going to navigate inside. So check our Python version. Yep, it's what we need it to be. And what we're going to do now is we're going to pip install pip tools, which we're going to use to install everything else. Nice, that's done. Let's just see where we are. Touch requirements.in. We're going to use nano to open this. We want Django to be 3.2. We want Django REST framework, and we want JSON, which is going to be the main thing that we're using. And we also want Django cores headers, and that is everything. And we're now going to do pip compile, which is a pip tools tool command. This will create a requirements.txt file like so. But at this point nothing's installed, so what we need to do is pip sync, which will actually install everything into our virtual environment. So that's our Django installation done. The next thing we're going to do is set up our Django project. So just like the original tutorial, we can use Django admin start project, and we'll call it quick. This has been created here. I'm going to open this now using VS Code, which is opened over here. Before we do that, we want to also navigate inside it like so. We can see our manage.py. We're going to come to the settings. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and open our documentation. So we're using JSON, we've installed it already. And I know for a fact that we want to go onto this third page, which is going to tell us what we need to do. So we're going to copy this. And on top of this, we also want course headers, which is something separate that we did. Course headers comes in here. Course headers .middleware .cores middleware, like so. We can see we want to add this REST framework, and we can do default permissions as well. So we need that comma here, and we can do something similar. We can say default, make sure it's spelled correctly, permission classes. Then we have our tuple, then we have REST framework dot permissions dot is authenticated. Voila, nicely done. Then cores allowed origins we want. I always forget if that's correct, but since that came up, we want cores allowed origins, and this is going to tell us what domains are allowed to make requests. And we're going to say local host, and that needs to be HTTP localhost, and we need to specify the port number 8080. When we create our Vue project, this is the default one, and we're also going to do HTTP 127.0.0.1 with port 8000, which is the default Django one. So as far as settings is concerned, I think everything is done. We do need to open up our URLs, and if we close this down, it actually tells us what we need to put in. We need that. Something else I actually recommend doing is installing debug toolbar, and then you can actually look at the requests being made from Axios. We're not going to do that though, but if we want to do that, then just tell me and I will do a video on it. And it's quite interesting because we get to see how many queries we're making with our token authentication. So the standard thing to do is API v1, and as we upgrade it in the future, we can just call that API v2 and v3 and v4 and so on. So this is just a nice simple format. So we're done. That's all of the Django stuff done. Great. How quick was that? That was probably just a few minutes and we're done. JSON Web Tokens is going to be the next video. Anyway, let's continue. What we now need to do is Python migrate, Python manage.pymigrate, and if we haven't got any mistakes, this will work. Everything seems to have worked. Then we're going to create a super user. Python create Python manage.py create super user, and we can actually give a username which will be admin, and email which will be admin@example.com, like so. Password 123, and Django will complain about this, but we don't care. We're just going to say yes, allow it. Next thing we want to do is Python manage.py run server, and we've got everything working. So we're going to copy this because my default is Brave, but I'm going to open this in Firefox. And I was actually speaking to someone the other day, and Firefox seems to break quite often because of like browser wars. So if you develop, it might be a good idea to actually develop on Firefox, because if it works on Firefox, it will probably work everywhere else. Whereas if you develop on Chrome, it might be that it doesn't work on Firefox. So keep that in mind. So we can see we've got our admin panel. We've got API v1 and API v1 again. And that's just because Joseph told us to set it up like this. So if we actually go to API v1, we'll be in the root of our API. Nice. And if we put anything after this, it will actually give us a list of possible paths. And we can actually see we can do token login, token logout, and we can register a user with this user's path. So great. So we don't need this anymore. We know what we're doing. Admin. This is probably a bunch of random ones I used previously. What was our username? Admin. And then password 123. Login, don't save, and we can see our user, which is admin, and that's under username, under email address as admin example. And we've got tokens. So these tokens will be created when we log in. And we can actually see that. So let's quickly go here. I don't want to do over explaining, but the general what happens is if we log in, we've already signed up. Signing up we can do without authentication. We sign in with a username and a password which returns a token, and that's how we do the token based authentication. Right, so that's all the Django stuff set up. So in the other video we did some curl requests. We're not going to do that because we're just trying to do a speed run through setting up this project really. So what we need to do next, I've got it here, is create a Vue project. Now if you don't have Vue, so we can actually check our version. So Vue version, I know that I've got this installed, but actually we want to go back a directory, and this is the correct place. So you want to be where we've put the project called quick, and we've got Vue installed. If you don't have Vue installed, then what you need to do is sudo npm install at Vue cli, like so, and that will walk you through the process. Well, we'll just install Vue for you. What we're then going to do is we're going to do Vue create, and I always call it quick and then app, the name of the project _ app. So quick app, and then we're manually going to go through creating the project. So manually select some features. We don't want TypeScript. I guess we do want this, Vuex, CSS processes, and that's it really. We're not going to use any unit testing or anything. We want version 3. Yes, that doesn't matter. Dedicate config file. Save this preset for future projects. No, and this is going to go ahead and create our VueJS project for us. Then we will also want to install Axios. Axios is what we're going to use to make the requests from our front end to our back end. I honestly think this tech stack is like the perfect tech stack for creating MVP projects, but so like minimum viable product. You can build something super quick, as you can see. Now it tells us what to do. Go into the app, and before we do that though, we're going to open it up. So quick app. It's going to ask us if we okay, that's fine. So cd quick app npm run serve. Then we can go back to where we were here. That's our Firefox, that's correct. And we want to just go localhost, and we need to specify the port. One moment. I think it's because I need to put the path in, which I haven't done. There you go. So we're all up and running. We've just created our Vue.js app. And Vuex is really important. It's going to be our state management and sort of. But we're not explaining, we're just building. Okay, what did I not do? I did not install npm install axios. So we'll do that quickly. At least I don't think I did. npm run serve. So we've set up our Vue.js project and our backend is finished. The next step now is going to be just cleaning all of this up and getting rid of it. So we're actually done with the Python stuff, so we can go ahead and close this. We're going to go into our Visual Studio, which is what I'm currently using. You want to go in the source directory, and then we have our, what have we got here? We've got our views, that's what I was looking for. And we can actually just go ahead and let's just go ahead and delete these. So delete this view, move to trash, delete this view, move to trash. Then we want to go into our main app, and these are no longer going to exist. Instead, what we're going to have is we're going to have a SignUp path, and we're going to have a login path, and we need to name those correspondingly. So sign up for our users and log in for our users. Okay, nice. We can keep the CSS styling for now. We've got some issues. Source at home. That's fine. So basically what this is saying, our router is trying to import things that don't exist. And we can stop that, and this components no longer exist. So this is going to be, we're matching paths, that's all we're doing. So we just created this. So sign up, and these don't exist yet. Sign up, sign up. We can get rid of all of this, and we're just going to copy and paste this. This is going to be login. So all we're doing right now is creating our paths, and what we're basically saying is we want to. These are going to be loading in our views, and when we click on this path, it's going to match it with whatever's here, which we haven't created. So next we need to actually go ahead and create them. So let's see what this home page is looking like. That it's kind of complaining still, I think, and that's because these views don't exist. So we're going to come into views, and we're going to create a new file, and one's going to be signup.vue, like so, and the next one is going to be login.vue. Template tags. This is going to be a div tag. Class, this is going to be our login page, and we can just have something like login in here, and we might want to put that in like a h1 tag. Okay, and then we need to actually export it, so we need to have these script tags. Again, if you want all the explanations of everything, I'll make sure to put the link to the previous video in the description. And it's the same sort of content, but this one's quicker. So we're going to have, first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to import axios from axios. We aren't using it quite yet, but we will in a bit. And then we're going to do export default like so, and then the name is going to be, this is the login view. Okay, and then we can just control all, control copy. This is going to be sign up. I keep writing sin, so sign up, sign up, and this is going to be called sign up. So now that we're exporting it with the correct name, we should be able to come into our index and import them. So this is where I wish I hadn't actually got rid of the original path, but I guess we want to get login from views login.view, and then import sign up from the same path, views, sign up dot view. So let's see how everything is coming along, and actually it's working now. So sign up and log in. So that's kind of nice when things just work, isn't it? So we've created those two views. Okay, remember this is the quick version of the video. What we're next going to do is you can delete this hello world component if you want. We're going to go into the store. Now the store, you can think of it as a state machine. It's going to give us a way to have variables that can be used across the app and accessed from any of our places. So I'm just going to go along and get one I've already built. And you can just pause the video and copy and paste it, and I'll just talk through it whilst you do it. All we did is we added a token variable and is authenticated. So what we're saying is by default we have these, we've just initialized a token which is empty and the user is not authenticated. Then we're going to initialize the store, and what we're going to say is if there's a token in local storage which we'll be assigning, then the token is going to hold that value of the token and the user is going to be authenticated. And basically the way you can think about this is once we've done the authentication and we say that our user is authenticated, there might be some views that you only want people who are authenticated to see, and that's when you can use this. So there's a token and we can say our user is authenticated, and then you can say if this user is authenticated, then you can access the dashboard or you can access your history, whatever. There's going to be a bunch of views that are going to be tied to whether the user is logged in or not, of course. So that's what this is about. We're setting the token and we're removing the token. Really simple. When we log out, we just want to remove the token. When we log in, we want to set the token. So that's the store. Next, we need to go to our app.view and we're going to leave all of the styling, but in between here we're going to add some script tags. And in fact, actually, in the same way, I will just copy and paste this. You can always just pause it. I just want this to be quick. And I'll talk what we're doing. We're importing axios from axios, same as before. Export default, same as with our login view and our login view. Then what we're saying is this.store.commit. And also before create is something we call a lifecycle hook. And the way I like to think about it is when you load the page, at the when you first load the page, I did something there. When you first load the page, this before create lifecycle hook is going to be called, and we're going to initialize the store, and the token is going to be set to the value in the local storage. And if there is a token, we're going to be setting this authorization token plus token, which is just part of the JSON documentation. So if I can find an example here, we've got authorization token, and then we've got our token. And remember, the token is going to be given to us by our request to log in. So that's all things you should keep in mind. Either way, you're going to have something that works by the end of it, which is what we're here for. So these are the default headers. So every time we make an Axios request, this is something that's going to be happen, which reminds me there's one thing we need to do. In our main.js, we need to import Axios from Axios. and then we're going to say axios.defaults.base URL is equal to where we're going to be making requests, and this is just going to prepend all of this to any Axios request we make. Port 8000. So when we make a request, we can just do users or API v1, so etc, etc. That's how we do that, and we put Axios in here. Whoops. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to just deal with the signup view, since signup is easier, as we saw before in here. Register a new user. We don't need anything special, we just need the username and the password. And notice how this is username and not email, but we will be using an email field and setting that to username. And we can maybe do something in another video if we want. So we're going to do a really simple form, which I'm just going to copy and paste to make it nice and quick. It's just 5 lines of code, and we've got a directive. This actually represents a VueJS directive called von. You could do this and it would work exactly the same. It's just shorthand. And the .prevent, it just stops the page from refreshing. Normally when you submit a form, the page refreshes. We don't need that because VueJS is going to be bound to the data. Okay, so then I also want this. So we're setting up a few things, username, password, and we don't need email actually. So that's it. We're actually missing a closing bracket here, which is fine. We can now close that, and then we're going to have some methods which I'm also going to copy, and I'll talk through them. Okay, so make sure everything looks as it needs to, and all we're going to be basically doing is, so vModel is another directive, and what this is basically going to do, whatever values in here is going to be linked to this, and whatever values in here is going to be linked to this. So this is going to update with whatever we put as our password and whatever we put as our username. And then we're making a little dictionary. Again, we don't need this. What we're basically doing here is we're setting both the email and the username as the email, but we don't need to do that for now because we need a username. Essentially, we have to have a username. We don't have to have an email. So yeah, you could add a third field if you really wanted to. Anyway, so creating a dictionary, username and password is what our Django is expecting. So this is part of, and the value that each one is going to hold is this.username, which is this, and then the password will be the password. So essentially all we're doing is we're inputting the form data, which is just this username and password. Very simple. Then we can make an Axios request. We're going to do a post request to the URL specified. So if yours is slightly different, if yours is an API v1, then it'll be slightly different, but it will always be /users because that's what the Joseph part does. Then we're passing the data, and then we want a response, and then the response is just going to push us to the login view, and we're going to console log the response too if there isn't any errors. So we can actually go ahead and potentially test this now if it's working. So it does look like it has worked. So we're going to just sign up with something at example.com, and our password is going to be a generated password. It needs to be complex. I don't want it to be saved, but it is being saved. And we want to open, we want to inspect. I never really use Firefox. So we're getting a few errors. Unknown mutation type, initialize, store. Should be fine. We're passing the state, which is correct. Don't update. So it seems that that worked correctly. It has. So object has been created. Voila. So we can go into our users, and we've got something at example. And this is what I was talking about. So we've got username, and we can have email, can have name, last name, but we have to set a username. I just decided to use email for that. You don't have to do that. you can set up a username field and a password field and an email field if you're happy. But if you don't have a username, it won't pass. So another thing you could do, for example, is you could just, well, that's exactly what we're doing. You could also put the email as the username and the email address, and then when the user's already signed up, you could allow them to change their username and then just access the user model directly through that way if they choose to do that. So we've gone to our login, and the login is slightly more tricky, but it shouldn't be a problem. So we're going to go to our login view now, and it might make sense to just copy and paste this whole thing, as I know it works. And you can just pause the video, and don't worry, I'm going to go through it. It's all much the same. So we've just added a form between these div tags as before. Submit form, which is just the name of our method. And we're doing email, password, and we've got a submit button, and we've got that same von directive, and we've got the two model directives too. And we're just preventing the refresh. You can play around with this. If you look at the documentation, you can do different things. Hopefully this is still correct. Again, the only data we really need is username and password. Again, we're just sending form data, username, password. But this is where it's slightly different. So our response is going to be slightly different. I'm console logging the response just because it's nice to see. And then remember what we saw in the documentation. It's going to return this auth token to us. And we can actually see this in the response in just a moment. I might actually sign up. Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're getting our token data, which is just going to be the response.data.auth token, exactly in the format we just saw, and I'll be able to show you that in the console. Then we're setting the token with the store mutation that we created. And then we're actually setting our defaults with this new token, and that token is being used for our authentication. And we're also going to set that token into our local storage, so we can kind of use it and retrieve it or whatever. So I think that's this one we used, and if we log in, we should get a response, and we can see we've got the data.auth token, which is this token, and we've actually managed to do anything. Now we're not pushing the code anywhere, but you can just as simply create another view, call it a dashboard, and then we can just, in the same way with SignUp, this.router.push, and then to that path. So that's it. You need to do a tiny bit more work, but the authentication is done. So really all you now need to do is create another view. This could be dashboard, for example, and then when you log in, go to that dashboard view, and you could actually, in the dashboard, in the same way that we're using this const token, this.store.state.token, you could say this.store.state is authenticated, and you can just put that in a code using like a vif directive. So you could say vif equals this.store.state is authenticated, then the user has access to this view. Otherwise, we want to redirect them or something like that, and you might need to put that somewhere else. But you can do it. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me them, but that's all we're going to be doing for this video. I wanted to show you like the minimum version of a token-based authentication system, and we've got it working. You just need to add a bit of functionality to it now, but it's there. So thank you for watching.